Today, we are taught the Earth is a solid sphere. From a very young age we are told the center of the Earth is filled with a molten core. We are taught the Earth was once a large liquid sphere of molten lava revolving around the Sun. We are told over time the crust of the Earth cooled and hardened into the surface we currently inhabit. We are told there are several facts which led scientists to this theory. We are told of volcanoes, which spew lava from inside. We are told Earth has magnetic field, which is produced by a rotating molten iron core. You may also have been shown how a liquid behaves in zero gravity. It compresses itself into the smallest ball it could make. What we are not shown is what happens when this ball of liquid begins rotating.
Water about 25 millimeters in diameter, and inside this sphere are a whole bunch of little tiny air bubbles. And we will see what the angular acceleration due to rotation does to these air bubbles as a function of time. What you are observing are the bubbles moving to the center axis of rotation. As a function of time, they will form this rather tightly packed bubble core. These bubbles are kept from coalescing from a small amount of added surfactant to the water. Here we have a rotating sphere filled with bubbles and tea leaves, and as expected, the bubbles go to the center and the tea leaves go to the outside edge, along with a few chunks of orange peel. Here we have a rotating sphere with bubbles and chunks from breaking up a small vitamin tablet. And the bubbles go to the center core, but the vitamin chunks seem to stay in their location dispersed through the sphere. And from this we deduced that the vitamin chunks have a density near that of water.
This is not a new theory. Sir Edmund Halley was a famous English astronomer and mathematician. Back in 1692, he published his theory on the hollow Earth. He developed his theory from working with Sir Isaac Newton on Earth magnetism fluctuation and possible causes. John Cleves Symmes was a former captain in the United States Army, war hero, philosopher, and hollow Earth researcher. He believed the Earth was hollow and habitable within. He was ready to dedicate his life to proving his theory, and attempted to search for the openings and explore the hollow Earth. In the spring 1818, Symmes sent a proposition to cities across the United States which stated, quote, "To all the world, I declare the Earth is hollow, and habitable within, containing a number of solid concentric spheres, one within the other, and that it is open at the poles 12 or 16 degrees. I pledge my life in support of this truth, and am ready to explore the hollow, if the world will support and aid me in the undertaking." Today there is a monument of the hollow Earth dedicated to Symmes and his theory. The most recent exploration of the polar regions was attempted by Admiral Richard Byrd. This man became an expert after making many flights over both poles and mapping the Antarctic. He discovered mountain peaks, trees, rivers, and large animals. After returning to America, Washington censored his expedition and ordered his silence. Before his death in 1957, Byrd wrote a lost entry in his diary concerning the event, which stated, quote, "We are crossing over the small mountain range still proceeding northward. Beyond the mountain range is, what appears to be a small river. There should be no green valley here. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. From the port side there are great forests growing on the mountainside. The instruments are still spinning. The gyroscope is oscillating back and forth. I alter the altitude to 1,400 feet, and execute a sharp left turn. The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and spot what seems to be a large animal of some kind below. It looks like a mammoth-like animal. This is incredible, but there it is. Temperature indicator reads 74 degrees. Continue our heading. Navigation instruments seem normal now. Radio is not functioning. The countryside is more level than normal. Ahead we spot what seem like habitations. This is impossible. Aircraft seems light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. The engines of our craft have stopped running. The landing process is beginning. I am making a hasty last entry in the flight log. I do not know what is going to happen now." End quote. This theory even goes further than recent explorers. In the past, humans believed there was another world beneath ours. The Bible, the Book of Enoch, and ancient writings of the Chinese, Egyptians, Eskimos, Hindus, Iceland, the Aztec and others tell of a great opening to the north and of an inner domain within the earth. The wise men of these brown race of men under the earth crust. Also that some of their ancestors came from the interior of the earth. Indians' legends tell of tribes living in the earth. Cave drawings in India depict a group of people emerging from a hollow earth, and local legends say they were the first humans to leave the subterranean world to populate the surface world. Native American legends, from the Mandan, Sioux, and Tuscarora speak of their tribal origins coming from inside the earth. Eskimos also have the same tribal teaching. The Shawnee claim a civilization of whites lived in what is now Florida, and returned to the caves of the earth. Incas have similar folklore. You may wonder about the inner sun. A possible explanation would be cold fusion. The subject of cold fusion does not seem to enjoy much credibility in the USA. Some scientists regard cold fusion as a pseudoscience. Yet many countries in the world are pouring enormous sums of money into hard scientific research on the matter. Some scientists have already discussed the possibility of cold fusion occurring inside the Earth. P. Palmer, a geophysicist, has already suggested this. Helium-3 emanating from inside the Earth has been regarded by some as an indication that cold fusion might be taking place deep down inside the Earth. If you take a closer look at ancient calendars, you can see most symbols are symmetrical, except for the creatures. Most videos or articles explaining the calendars are just making things up. These calendars are not telling us of time, they do not tell us anything about the heavens, they are all maps. The Mayan calendar is a map of the concave planet. It would get one to wonder why it is that Hollywood would even want to push this conspiracy theory. Of what the Mayans predicted, it was just disinformation. These artifacts are evidence that there is a hollow Earth. In the past, humans could have possibly had some interaction with other beings living beneath us, or even possibly originated from the underground. The animals on these calendars do not represent different years, but all the living creatures living on the concave plane that is the Earth. You can see what exactly represents the sun giving light to one part of the Earth, and darkness to the other. You can also see, at least in the Mayan map, there is a layer of water underneath the land. In the past, the Vatican, and the governments they controlled stood firmly on their beliefs that the Earth was flat. Some say it was out of fear that the public would realize they were wrong, and that the public would begin to question the credibility of the organizations they received their information from. I think they have always, and still know the truth. I do not think it is out of fear of being wrong, but just to keep the public in the dark, trying to keep them as far from the truth as possible. Ivars, a security consultant, describes his experience interviewing a pilot who claims to have flown in the Arctic many times, and to have seen the gaping hole at the top of the world, which is the entrance to the inner Earth. He claims that many Arctic pilots are very aware of this enigma at the top of the planet, yet agree to remain silent for the sake of their careers.